Okay, I'm tired. Welcome to a new episode of 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse. And Bill, yeah, you're right. I had just got by on the last episode with 3 films because, and Bill can break my balls because we go back, over 30 years. I was just trying to fill something because we had storms going on for the last, over the weekend and shit. And it wound up that I ate a tree. Didn't hit the house, but nevertheless, I ate a tree. And I had to take the fucker down. And then wound up that my fence is shot, something I didn't need to hear. It seems like only the ivy was holding it up. So my neighbor came over and we looked at it because he's got to look at it. And there's a fucking hole in the fucking fence. It's not going to be good. So we shored it up, and he came over with this really wild chainsaw on a pole and took down the rest of the tree, and he threw it over the fence because he wants to have a bonfire over the weekend. So fine. So I solved that problem, but being a homeowner and being alone and being broke, I got to do all this shit myself. So in the winter, you guys were getting, a bunch of, like 3, sometimes 4 episodes a week. So I might have to cut it back a little bit because I got chores to do, Mow the lawn, I got to fill in a bunch of shit, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, I just wanted to clear that up. I know I sort of snuck around on another one, but honestly, I didn't really like some of those films anyhow, except for King Kong vs. Godzilla. So, anyway, today is Roger Corman's birthday. Roger Corman probably launched more careers than any other person in the history of film, I would think. And I'm talking directors, I'm talking actors, I'm talking, just about everybody. Because Roger, got what he wanted out of you, and doing that made you something. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that he launched, that he helped, that, he featured are no longer with us. And, I'm thinking back from the AIP days, I mean, other than Roger, Jonathan Hayes, I believe, is still with us, and Jack Nicholson. I don't think there's anyone left. It was an era, an era that will never happen again because of, just of what an important force Roger Corman was in the industry, even in the beginning. His, being able to identify talent and use the talent and let the talent shine. Honestly, he was the first director I actually realized because his Day the World Ended scared the shit out of me back in when I saw it on afternoon TV during the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 60s. Scared the living shit out of me. But then I just identified that if a film was directed by Roger Corman, I would have to see it. And honestly, I can honestly say I have never been disappointed in anything I've seen that Roger directed. And then you think of the people that, he showcased. First guy, I believe he was the first guy to give Charles Bronson a leading role in Machine Gun Kelly. Peter Graves and Lee Van Cleef, and He Conquered the World. People like Bruce Stern, Peter Fonda, the women, Allison Hayes, Beverly Garland, who went on to great things. And just, of course, the most iconic character actor there ever was came out of the Corman School, Dick Miller. Other character actors that, worked with Corman, noted heavy and screenwriter Leo Gordon. William Shatner in The Intruder, which that might have been the one Corman film that actually tanked, but like I said before, M.A. Rips picked it up and changed it to I Hate Your Guts, and it worked down there anyway. But, and then, forming his own companies, New World, New Horizons, Concord, whatever. It just kept on going and going and going, and, he was the guy who, after the Blood Island stuff happened, we were doing the Women in Prison movies from the Philippines that he had a hand in, all this stuff. Just, such a huge body of work and such a huge, contribution to the whole film genre. Honestly, I don't think we would have what we have today if it wasn't for Roger Corman. because, you know, he took the chances, he broke the ground, he gave us some outrageous stuff like Attack of the Crab Monsters, The Undead, all this stuff, you know, it just so much. And then, for, you know, another guy to realize the talent of Vincent Price and, you know, doing that whole series of Poe films with him. I mean, you know, it's just so, you know, so astounding that a man, just one guy, could do all this stuff and be responsible for a lot of this stuff. And, you know, thankfully he's still with us today. I believe he's 95. So, happy birthday, Roger Corman, and thank you for all you've done for you know, the fans like myself and everybody else out there, as far as, you know, putting out some fucking really great shit and, you know, showcasing some people that would go on to become superstars and icons in the business. So yeah, that's it's just wonderful. And happy birthday, bro. You know, I was privileged enough to meet you. You know, the one time you did come out to Chiller Theater, I drove you to the airport. It was like a great thing in my life, and I'll share a story with you. I don't know if I had shared this before. I was up with the promoter, Kevin Clement, because Roger was getting paid whatever the deal was, you know, behind closed doors. So the three of us are sitting around the table, and here's Kevin counting out the money, and I'm watching Roger's eyes, and I know he's counting right along with him. And when Kevin dropped the last bill on the pile, I turned around and I said, "Roger, this is like being in one of your movies." And he cracked up. So that's my memory of Roger Corman. Other things that were going on this weekend, this was Wrestlemania weekend, which basically has become this sort of national event outside of the WWE, because there's a lot of conventions and a lot of other shows that not only, you know, we're out in California where that show was, but, you know, locally, and, you know, Game Changer in Jersey and all these things. You know, it was just a marathon, you know, 3 days of, you know, all you would ever want to see in wrestling, you know, with deathmatch guys, high flyers, all kinds of guys. But, of course, there's always got to be that one fucking thing that's going to mar the whole thing. And this has been on the internet. Jim Cornette was talking about it. The performer in question, Giselle Shaw, was called out by Rick Steiner in a very uncomplimentary way, using sexual slurs, a lot of bullshit from someone who's a veteran of the sport and should have a lot more fucking class than he showed. We can understand his brother, because his brother's a roided out asshole. But Rick, I had, you know, a lot of respect for up until now, because there's no fucking reason to out somebody from the transgender community who is participating in professional wrestling. Let's face it, there are transgender performers. Nyla Rose is another one. Back in the day, there was always a gay or gay-themed performer, going back from Ricky Starr from the 50s to the Christopher Street connection on the East Coast Indies in late 90s, early 2000s, plus Exotic Adrian Street, you know, stuff like that. So it's always been there, but to basically, and, you know, she's a woman, dude. What the fuck? She's participating in Impact. She's on the women's roster. For you to fucking go after a woman, regardless if she be transgendered or not, that shows a total fucking lack of class on your part. And as far as you being a legend, hey, the Road Warriors kicked your ass every time they got in the ring. Just pisses me off when this shit happens, because wrestling has evolved, and you know, it's all different. And now the other weird thing is that the WWE was bought by UFC. So now I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Not that I'm a WWE fan, because I'm not. I haven't watched it in years. I know a lot of guys that are up there, and they're great workers and great performers. But is this basically saying that the UFC has been a work promotion too? I mean, I know the guys go out there and beat the shit out of each other, but right about now they're doing it in wrestling, as far as I can see, because you're going to AEW on any show, somebody's pounding the piss out of somebody and they're not fucking pulling back. And another thing that's really fucked up is you'll have 9 finishers in one match that basically one of these finishers would have been the end of the fucking match 5 or 6 years ago. No, they're kicking out of this shit. It sort of puts your suspension of disbelief on hold, because you know nobody physically, if this was real, could kick out. I mean, granted, it's a performance, it's an illusion, but the punches and the kicks aren't an illusion, because you're seeing welts coming up now where you didn't see this shit before. So, like I said, it's sort of evolved, but you're not going for the chase. You're not. I'm not saying any other. I'm just talking about AEW in general right now, because that's the only one I was watching. It's really tough, when you pull angles like bam, 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 like a guy's a good guy one week and a heel the next week. There's supposed to be a transition, a build. You're supposed to emotionally involve fans in the storyline, but I think Barry Windham said it best, that basically, back in the day, and we're not talking that long ago, for me in the 90s and shit like that he could go 60, 90 minutes with Flair and people be on the edge of their seat. He said now it's a video game mentality. Bam, 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 bam. It has to go like that. But yeah, maybe so, but it's going to shorten a lot of careers that way too. But I'm still a fan. I'll always be a fan, and I like the old school stuff. And I just heard that Steve Kern put out a book, The Kern Chronicles, which I got to get, because, man, he was from Florida. He came up with all that crazy shit going on down there, then went to Memphis, was one of the fabulous ones, and then wound up in the WWE as Skinner, I think it was, or something. And I think he's a trainer now, but he's got to have some great shit in that book, so I'm going to check that out. So, yeah, that's the story. The other thing is, too, which held me up, is my partner in crime and personal trainer, Dr. Gonzo, was up over the weekend because he did the Cinema Wasteland convention. And, a few people stopped down and we hung out. We had some fun, shot the shit. And he scored a bunch of circa 60s cartoon erotica, shall we say, which I'm going to do a show and tell on that down the road before I put it up for sale, because there's some interesting stuff in there, some Bill Ward stuff, some other artists that I can't think of off the top of my head, but I guess it's okay to do it on YouTube. As far as I know, there's nothing too explicit, and these are like a real cool time capsule, because one date I saw was like 66, so when you figure that, that's a transition of, we're getting slowly into the game until we hit the 70s when it all went fucking crazy. So it's going to be interesting. So until then, stay safe. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in. And we'll catch you on the flip side.